Because America negotiated from a position of strength and principle, we have stopped the spread of nuclear weapons in this region.
این ایستادگی مردم و مقاومت بود که طرف مقابل را به خوبی پای میز مذاکره آورد.
A win-win solution.
This is the good deal that we have sought.
It is a great honor for us to announce that we have reached an agreement on the Iranian nuclear issue. With courage, political will, mutual respect and leadership, we delivered on what the world was hoping for, a shared commitment to peace and to join hands in order to make our world safer. This is an historic day also because we are creating the conditions for building trust and opening a new chapter in our relationship.
Today, after 2 years of negotiations, the United States, together with our international partners, has achieved something that decades of animosity has not: a comprehensive long-term deal with Iran that will prevent it from obtaining a nuclear weapon. This deal meets every single one of the bottom lines that we established when we achieved a framework earlier this spring. Every pathway to a nuclear weapon is cut off. Without this deal, there is no scenario where the world joins us in sanctioning Iran until it completely dismantles its nuclear program. Nothing we know about the Iranian government suggests that it would simply capitulate under that kind of pressure, and the world would not support an effort to permanently sanction Iran into submission. We put sanctions in place to get a diplomatic resolution, and that is what we have done.
Deal era.
Today, a new chapter has started in Iran's relations with the world. President. The nuclear deal, which is a brilliant example of victory over war, has managed to disperse the clouds of hostility and perhaps even the specter of another war and extensive tensions from the Middle East. The deal can and should herald a new era and lead to positive outcomes regarding the establishment of sustainable peace and stability in the region. From our point of view, the agreed-upon deal is not the final objective, but a development which can and should be the basis of further achievements to come.
It's the Star Wars of international relationships. Good in the 70s, terrible for a long time, and now hopefully on the brink of a revival. Because this week, we got some major news.
Today, President Obama announced an agreement he says will keep an atomic bomb out of Iranian hands for more than a decade.
This deal offers an opportunity to move in a new direction. We should seize it.
Wow. I mean, you can tell the president means business because he's speaking from the "I killed bin Laden and threw him in the ocean" wing of the White House. And you can tell that Biden means business because he is locking eyes with the camera. And there were some who, within hours of the deal being announced, simply would not be able to wait to start criticizing it.
This is a bad deal. The worst possible outcome is you've created a nuclear arms race in the Mideast. You put Israel at risk, and you put us at risk.
The only other thing that I would add is that we don't know all the specifics to this plan.
That's true.
And you yourself haven't read anything,
That's true.
right?
He hadn't read it. Lindsey Graham is discussing the Iran deal the way a 4-year-old talks about broccoli. It's disgusting. And Lindsey Graham, to be fair, was not alone in criticising the deal based solely on what he thought it contained.
The deal that we have out there, in my view, from what I know of it thus far, is unacceptable. If, in fact, it's as bad a deal as I think it is at this moment, we'll do everything we can to stop it.
Wait, as bad as you think it is, that is a clear sign that you didn't do the reading.
The world is a much more dangerous place today than it was yesterday. The leading international powers have bet our collective future on a deal with the foremost sponsor of international terrorism. They've gambled that in 10 years' time, Iran's terrorist regime will change while removing any incentive for it to do so.
So, I've been doing deals for a long time. I've been making lots of wonderful deals, great deals. That's what I do. Never, ever, ever in my life have I seen any transaction so incompetently negotiated as our deal with Iran. And I mean never.
We are dramatically restricting the amount of enriched uranium that they can have on hand. Iran will reduce its stockpile of enriched uranium by 98%, from 12,000 kilograms to only 300 kilograms. Iran will reduce the number of centrifuges enriching uranium to just over 5,000 for the next decade, from almost 20,000 today. And for the next 10 years, only the oldest and least capable model of centrifuges will be allowed to operate. Right now, Iran has enough enriched uranium for about 10 bombs, and if Iran wanted to acquire a nuclear weapon, it would take only 2 or 3 months for it to enrich enough uranium to a high enough level to produce a bomb. If Iran did decide that it wanted to race to a weapon, it would start with so few machines and so little uranium that it would take them a year to reach enough material for even a single first bomb.
We have agreed to further cooperate with respect to the verification to be undertaken by the IAEA to resolve all present and past issues. We will have another meeting on the 11th of December.
As the Islamic Republic of Iran, in realization of its voluntary confidence-building measures and practical steps taken, is committed to its undertakings under the JCPOA and the roadmap, we likewise expect the IAEA and the E3EU3 to reciprocate through impartial and objective conclusion of the ongoing process and removal of the unjust sanctions, respectively.
Ministers tonight have mainly taken stock of the good start we have done. You know that there was a visit of the IAEA in Iran recently, and Amano expressed his satisfaction with the visit, so this is a good step that has already been taken. We are all fully committed to do our part on implementing all sides, all parts of the agreement. And we all know very well that this is an agreement that requires all the parties to do their part. So I'm confident that the agreement will be implemented at full by all parties in time and swiftly.
The Senate voted against clearing the way for a debate of the bill in a 58-42 vote, less than the 60 votes needed to advance a resolution of disapproval.
It was a heated session, but eventually Iran's conservative-dominated parliament endorsed the landmark nuclear agreement struck earlier this year with world powers. The question now is how soon will it be implemented?
Among world powers, there is enthusiasm for the positive role Iran can play. British Prime Minister David Cameron on Monday met with Rouhani to talk about ways to end the Syrian civil war and stop the spread of ISIL. Russia this weekend announced plans to share intelligence about ISIL with Iran, Iraq and Syria in a move that surprised the U.S.
We need to achieve peace and a way forward in Syria, in Yemen, in the region itself, and I think there are opportunities this week and through these discussions to make some progress. So I don't want to predict anything. I don't want to get specific about what issue may or may not be discussed. We always talk about American citizens with respect to their detainment in any part of the world. And so you can count on the fact that we will have a discussion.
Comprehensive plan of action, that is the project that we started together, and we hope that by its full implementation, its good faith implementation, we can dent some of the mistrust that has existed over the past many decades.
We should not expect too much too quickly from Iran. Let's not forget they have a pretty strong opposition, as we all know. They have their own hardliners. Let's not have illusions about how quickly and how resolutely Iran can actually become a partner in issues other than the implementation of the nuclear deal. I believe Iran wants to do that. I believe Iran has ambitions to be a strong and not an isolated power in the region. But I think we need, I love this word, I think we need strategic patience.
That there won't be a military solution. There has to be a political solution. The political solution has to be acceptable to the Syrian people. People outside Syria can only facilitate Syrians reaching that solution, not dictate. We cannot dictate for the Syrian people. We cannot decide for the Syrian people who should govern and who should not govern them. But we can help the Syrian people to achieve a political framework in which they can be assured that the future of Syria will be decided by the Syrians themselves. And we all need to realize that in bringing this humanitarian nightmare to an end, everybody needs to be flexible, as we all were flexible in resolving the nuclear issue. And everybody has to redefine the problem. The problem in Syria is a problem that needs to be redefined, and unless we are able to redefine this problem in a non-zero-sum mentality, in a different paradigm, then we will be able to resolve it only after we redefine the problem. Iran is ready to play its role in this process, and we will participate actively in any political solution to Syria.
The crisis in Syria and a new participant in multilateral talks, which really is trying to find a diplomatic solution to the crisis. Iran has accepted an invitation to attend this week's discussions in Vienna. It's the first time Tehran will be participating.
Vienna tonight to take the next step in our discussions with representatives from an ever-broadening group of nations, including Iran, which will join one of these multilateral gatherings for the first time. Surely we can find a place where one man does not stand in the way of the possibilities of peace. So we agree that all of these steps can only be achieved and Syria can only be saved through a political settlement.
Before a German government plane packed with the nation's economic elite touched down in Tehran. The trip was the first in a rush of European ministers and business people flocking to a market poised to reopen after years of grinding sanctions.
What could it mean for Iran's economy? The deal could eventually unlock more than $100 billion of Iranian cash that has been locked in foreign bank accounts, boosting the government's buying power. The deal could also pave the way for many financial, energy, and commercial sanctions to be suspended or lifted. Western diplomats predict this could lead to Iran's economy expanding by 7 or 8% annually for years to come. Would Iran be selling more oil? Indeed, Iran's crude oil exports have declined by roughly 1 million barrels a day since tough sanctions were imposed back in 2012. Analysts say it could double oil exports quickly after sanctions are lifted. It also has some 20 million barrels of oil in storage it could deliver as soon as it had buyers. A flood of new Iranian crude could eat away at Saudi Arabia's position as China's top foreign crude supplier. Iran's oil fields need investment, and Iran may offer development projects to countries that purchase its oil. Would the deal open Iran's door to foreign companies? Not right away. It might take until early next year for sanctions to be lifted, but the business opportunities could be major. Iran has 80 million residents. around 2/3 of whom are under age 30. In the aviation sector, government officials say Iran's in the market to replace as many as 400 jets over the next 10 years at a cost of at least $20 billion. A potentially rich opportunity for companies like Airbus and Boeing, which started selling aircraft manuals and charts to an Iranian airline last year. Its first Iranian sales in more than 3 decades.
Dr. Rouhani has a very robust economic reform policy. He's introduced a package to instigate more investment in the different economic sectors, to enliven the economic processes in the country. And we see that there are a lot of steps already being taken in terms of foreign investors, a lot of diplomatic groups coming, delegations coming from different countries, coming to visit Iran, different economic parties and groups coming, and also there's a lot of willingness to invest. This means that there is a lot of momentum, and that means that there's a lot of optimism on the future, particularly once the sanctions are totally lifted. I think that there will be an influx of both investors, but also tourists, also a lot of both diplomatic and cultural exchanges.
Just because Iranian hardliners chant death to America does not mean that that's what all Iranians believe. In fact, it's those hardliners who are most comfortable with the status quo. It's those hardliners chanting death to America who've been most opposed to the deal. They're making common cause with the Republican caucus.
And I think any reconciliation between the United States government and the government of Iran that wants to destroy us is impossible.
It's impossible, Trita Parsi.
Well, the same people who said that it's impossible about this now were also the same people who said that it's impossible to negotiate with the Iranians. Said it's impossible for the Iranians to come to the table. It's impossible for the Iranians to uphold the JPOA, the interim agreement. On everything they said about Iran when it came to what it could or could not do, they ended up being wrong. President Obama managed to do this by not listening to those voices. At the same time, I think it's important to understand that there are significant limitations to how far the United States and Iran could move towards each other. I don't think they're going to be best friends anytime soon. But I think they can stop being worst enemies.
If you would just shift from death to America and death to Israel to, say, indigestion for Israel or sprained ankles for the United States, then you could move from number 1 to number 2 in the terrorist sponsoring states.
The issue with the focus on the rhetoric is very fascinating. I personally think it is very wrong of the Iranians to chant those deaths, and incidentally, a lot of Iranians also agree with that. And in fact, today they go and they wipe out the Death to America graffiti that had been put on the walls of the U.S. Embassy.
Isn't that a two-way street? If you're an American, you have every right to be worried about an Iranian leader who's saying death to America, of course. But if you're an Iranian and you hear John McCain, who was running for president of the United States, singing bomb, 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 bomb Iran, should you not be worried about that?
No. John doesn't mean that.
John doesn't mean that, but Ayatollah Khamenei does. We get to pick and choose which belligerent rhetoric we get to do.
Well, actually,
I believe he's a friend of yours, John McCain.
Oh, he is. I worked for him.
So do you support would you sing along in the chorus of Bomb, Bomb, Bomb Iran?
Probably only the chorus. I don't know that I'd sing it.
معلوم هم هست که مراد از مرگبار آمریکا مرگ بر ملت آمریکا نیست. ملت آمریکا مثل بقیه ملت ها. یعنی مرگ بر سیاست های آمریکا.
John F. Kennedy cautioned here more than 50 years ago at this university that the pursuit of peace is not as dramatic as the pursuit of war. But it's so very important. It is surely the pursuit of peace that is most needed in this world so full of strife.